Okay, I am calling the Thursday, June 4th, 2026 meeting of the Westwood School Committee to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, here we go. I'd like to recognize Westwood Media Center, which is live streaming this meeting and recording it for later viewing on its platforms. As always, we thank Westwood Media Center for everything that they do for us. All right, I'll turn it over. Oh, we don't have video?
So we have video above us.
Okay.
Sorry, we just, we realized that we did not have everything up and
that's all
running,
right.
so.
We can turn around.
At the very, old fashioned, we can
can
crank the
turn
nuts and turn around, so.
All right, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, May, I appreciate it. So happy to have everybody here this evening, as we just lost our video.
Yeah. There's Steve when you need
I
him.
know. I wonder why he's not here.
There we go.
Just gonna
That
vamp
looks
here for a
promising.
second, so.
Is it up behind us?
Yeah.
Nope, there
Oh,
we go.
we're good now,
All
awesome.
right, we're good.
Thank you, Charlotte.
As always,
you,
we thank
Charlotte.
Charlotte and Westwood Media Center.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thanks, Alyssa.
All right, so we'll jump in as we always do with a spin around WPS. This Sunday, the class of 2026 graduated. Congratulations to our seniors. It's always a great ceremony, a great event, and very happy to be there to join them in the celebration. So on the right, our seniors actually, as we've done for a few years now, visited their former elementary schools in Thurston on their farewell bus tour with younger students cheering them on, teachers giving them congratulations. For those that did not see it, I know we blast out through social media. NBC 10 did a great story on our farewell bus tour. So if you have not checked that out yet, please do so. As we continue our spin around the district, on the left, our unified track team competed at the MIAA State Championship meet on May 27th. They placed second in Division II after placing first overall in the Metro West Division II sectionals earlier in the month. So congrats to the team on those big wins. And on the right, the high school recognized Teacher of the Year, Chris Taylor, at their assembly. So congrats to Chris. Continuing field days have been going on. So these are pictures from field days at Martha Jones. It's been a success across our elementary schools. Thank you to all of our parent volunteers who contributed and our students who put in their most competitive efforts across lots of different events and activities. From Sheehan, we have on the left our annual cultural festival that brings families together to celebrate the many different cultures represented at the school, featuring a variety of foods to taste, music to enjoy, and games to play. The drum circle in the center is always a big hit. On the right, our grade 4 science. In grade 4 science, students learned about how the eye and the brain work together to help us see. Students looked at objects under the microscope, such as pictures on a phone to see how the pixels are grouped together. A flower and their hands, and many were shocked to see just how dirty their hands were when they looked at them underneath the microscope. Continuing, so at Thurston on the left, 6th graders participated in recycled car races with some really creative cars on display. In the middle, you can see our spring band concert that occurred, highlighting our bass player here. And on the right is 5th grade students visiting TMS in preparation for moving up to grade 6 next year. At Pine Hill, on the left and the middle, 3rd grade students planted vegetables for an effort across multiple schools in which students developed 3 sisters gardens, an agricultural method where corn, beans, and squash are grown together to create a symbiotic ecosystem. And then it's always a big hit every year. Our students at Pine Hill and Downey observes chicks hatching as part of our annual egg hatching experience. Students learn about traits, read about chickens, make predictions on how many will hatch, and even calculate percentage on successfully hatched eggs. So the live camera streams about when the eggs are going to hatch are always a hit each year. Sorry. And then at Downey, families enjoying the annual end of the year art show at the end of May, which included some great artwork from students, particularly using the new kiln. So it's great to always see the work of our students around the district. With the end of the year comes some goodbyes as well. This is our last school committee meeting of the school year. And I want to acknowledge and thank the members of our admin team that are leaving us. So Amy Davenport, Amy is unfortunately not able to be here tonight because she is still busy principaling. She is off at the girls lacrosse quarterfinal match between Westwood and Walpole this evening. But thank you to Amy for her years of services, not just as principal at the high school, but principal, dean, and teacher. Thank you to Donna Tobin for her years of service, currently serving as interim Sheehan principal, but our LCL director, our former MJ principal. Thank you so much, Donna, for all that you have done for the district. And thank you to Tom Millett, our high school assistant principal. So I want to recognize them all, particularly Donna with you here in the room. Just want to thank you and give you a round of applause. So. We also want to acknowledge our other retirees around the district. My apologies for getting it is just recently linked into the agenda because I need to have clearance from somebody to make sure that I can share all the names. We want to recognize those that are not just retiring this June, but those that retired earlier in the year as well. Those that are earlier are asterisks. So congratulations to Kristen Evan, principal at Sheehan, 18 years. Dave Fredrickson, guidance counselor at the high school, 15 years. Paul Grenham, grade 2 teacher at Sheehan, 27 years. Ellen Hanley-Nadeau, nurse at Downey, 17 years. Donna Harris, our extended day site coordinator at Downey, 26 years. Shannon Holbrook, literacy paraprofessional at Sheehan, 15 years. Sandy Mack, earlier in the year, admin assistant in food service, 11 years. Kate Merton, instructional technology coach at Sheehan, 2 impactful years with us. Emily Miller, science teacher at the high school, 15 years. Beth Stebbins, grade 5 teacher at Sheehan, 14 years. Bianca Terenzi, accounts payable, 51 years here in the district. Donna, again, 14 years here in Westwood. And Sydney Worthen, literacy specialist at Pine Hill, 25 years. So collectively, I hope you join me in thanking them all. And I know you thank me in joining them all, thanking them all for their collective 250 years of service in educating the children of Westwood. So we wish them all a long, happy, and healthy retirement. And certainly wish them the best as they move on to the next phase of their lives. So thank them all. With that, with goodbyes also come hellos. And so I'm happy to announce that since our last meeting, we did announce our new high school principal, Dr. John Murray. Dr. Murray is not able to be with us this evening because he is actually off at the Medway School Committee tonight where he is coming from. But very happy to have John in the district. John actually has been doing some transition work. He joined our guidance literacy review meeting earlier this afternoon, and very happy to have John coming on board officially starting on July 1. And thank you very much to all the members of the screening team, all that participated in the site visits, and we're really excited to have John joining the district in less than a month's time at this point. So, just continue with the superintendent's update. So we talked extensively at our meeting in May around our coalition to combat hate speech. Our steering committee has met a couple of times. We had our first 2 sort of public-facing events, both Tuesday night and Thursday morning. Thank you to all the members of the community that came out. We're part of that. Thank you to our staff members that were here. Thank you to the committee members that were able to join us in staggered ways, in ways that we didn't violate quorum rules. But it's a start. You know, I want to fully acknowledge, like, there is a lot of work that we need to do, and that work right now is going to be brought into 4 subcommittees. Those subcommittees are our education and learning, which is tasked with how we do the work of educating both internally in the district and outside of the district. Subcommittee on community partnerships and culture, which is how do we bring these initiatives more broadly into the community, how do we increase the level of engagement. Our accountability reporting and response subcommittee that's dedicating about how do we identify, how do we track, how do we communicate when incidents occur, how do we learn from those things, and then our student voice and leadership committee, which is really predicated on our students being involved in that. I want to thank Latifa for her work in organizing all of this particularly. Thank you so much for that. And again, I think it's a start. You know, really the work of the subcommittees right now is centered around what are the wins that we need to do and the work that we're going to do over the course of the summer so that when we hit the ground in September, we have real actionable items to be able to move forward with. I know in particular, actually maybe Joanna, I'll let you speak about since you're chairing the group around accountability reporting and response.
Sure.
So let me stop there and then actually let me turn over to committee members for sort of your thoughts as you've been a part of this process. So.
Sure. I can start with our subcommittee group, and I'm also part of the steering committee, and I really appreciate the thoughtful work that Latifa has guided us through to get to where we are now, and also the work still ahead. I think we've, as a steering committee, we put a lot of thought into what is our theory of action, who are the people who are not in the room, who could be and should be a part of this conversation, and how do we really make a difference in a broader community. I think it's helpful to think about this work in light of the fact that students are only in our buildings for about 12% of the year. And when you put it in that framing, we have a big opportunity to make a bigger difference across the community, and that's the work of all of us. For the accountability and response, I forget the other word, data collection. Reporting, response, and accountability group, we're charged with thinking about protocols for response. How and what data are we gathering? How are we reporting that out? How are we going to look at that data for trends? And then what do we do with that information? And there's a lot of energy behind that work, and Tim's part of that group too. And I'm excited to see where that goes. So I can. That's my report out on that particular subcommittee.
No, I thought it was, I went on Tuesday night. I thought it was a fantastic session. I think, as Joanna, you mentioned, the schools are only a part of it. I really hope that we can get a wider coalition, more people from the town side, more people from the community, because we cannot do this work in a vacuum. We cannot, send our kids to school and try and, do this work here and have them go home and not have the work be done outside of school. It just won't work. So I'm hopeful that as we sort of start to build steam, we'll start collecting more and more voices and more people from outside the school, and from outside parents and, other people. And I think part of our job is to figure out how to do that. Yeah. But I thought the session that I went to on Tuesday was excellent. And thank you, Latifa. It was informative, but also very great conversation. And I feel like I felt better coming out of it. So thank you.
And then, sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I actually was a part of the Community Partnerships and Culture Subcommittee, which is exactly what you're talking about, getting people not just within the schools involved. And what I thought was really amazing, I joined this morning, the session there, and Latifa was a part of the committee that I'm on. And I think what came out of that are actions that we can actually take, and we can see the path forward and how we do get people involved. Quick wins that we can have over the summer. This is not going to be taking the whole summer off. We get to relax. We're meeting every 2 weeks. That's something that needs to happen, because once the fall comes, we'll be able to really put the plan in place and get the entire community involved, whether it be sports coaches, religious leaders, or just citizens around our town in general. So I think that was really interesting and a really great way to look at it, because like you said, this can't be done in a vacuum. It can't just be the educators. It can't just be the parents of kids who are dealing with it. It's a community-wide mission. And I thought it was an amazing conversation we had today. So thank you.
Great.
So shifting topics. Our district website and mass communication system. So we've talked about that we have needed to overhaul our website. I'm very happy that we're in the process of doing that. I want to give a huge shout out to Steve Ouellette, who's unfortunately not able to be here tonight, and to Alyssa Pravaza, who are doing a ton of work behind the scenes to make this happen. So what we're going to show you tonight, I'll have some slides to kind of talk about what's there, but I actually want to begin by showing you. So this is a mock-up. This is not operational yet. But so one of the big highlights of this, you'll see that in some ways it looks similar, but it is really about easier navigation. There's a dedicated top-level family tab in which the things that our families are looking to go to more frequently will be able to be there. There's a persistent quick-like navigation buttons for some of the most important things. People want to know athletics, people want to go to Aspen, people want to know lunch menus, do online payments, all the school calendar, all in a very easy-to-access way. That is consistent from page to page. It also provides us the opportunity to incorporate live newsfeed elements that are integrated with our social media platforms, so that as we post things, they're posted simultaneously on the website and the live feed. I will say one of the challenges with our existing website has been it is really clunky to update on our end. And so the ability to have a much more integrated process works well. The other, and just kind of scrolling through, like we want to make sure we highlight the portrait of a graduate on the website. So just from a design perspective, we want to incorporate all of these things. Coming back to, sorry about that. The last bullet here, which we don't have a mock-up for right now, is there will be a dedicated Westwood Public Schools branded mobile app. So the company that we're working with, Apogee, is really designed to have both the sort of traditional website, but really that in your hand, on your phone ability to communicate. Users can customize that for their specific feeds. I want to be subscribed to the high school and the performing arts program and Downey because those are where my kids are and that's what my kids do. That will include the ability to have customizable push notifications and alerts. So we're excited about that in terms of getting, we know that the conglomeration of calendars can be really challenging. Part of this will be making sure that we do this in one-stop shopping. I know we had the PTO forum meeting last week, and we want to make sure that we work with our PTO leaders so that PTO events can be integrated into the app as well. So we're really excited about what that can do. With this, it's not just updating the website, it's also updating our mass communication system. You may have noticed over the last couple of weeks that we've had emails that have gone out from a district perspective that look different. You'll see the branded W up on the top of the emails. So we're transitioning from our old system, School Messenger, to the Apogee mass communication system. On the end is families, caregivers, and staff will continue to receive, text, voice, email communications the way they have before. It will just look a little bit different and be a little bit branded. Again, the option to get push notifications to your app if you want them. I think one of the big things for us is that it is both linked with our social media outlets so that when we push things out, we can push them out in multiple ways simultaneously. It is also much easier in the case of emergency. The ability to send it from a phone as opposed to having to really sit down and use it from a laptop. That's critical in the case of an emergency to be able to push that notification out in a positive way, or in a positive way is a really weird way to say that, in a successful way and in a succinct way that we would need to do in case of emergency notification. And I would say that even with that, the ability to create filtered lists on the fly. So we want to create a filtered list for everybody that's on bus 2 because something happened with bus 2. We want to do everything on, let's say just the fourth grade, this particular fourth grade classroom at Sheehan. Right, the ability to do that on the fly is much, much easier from a end user perspective, or from a internal perspective. In terms of implementation timeline, we're making that transition to the mass communication system now. So School Messenger, which we had used previously, will end on June 30th. So we're encouraging everybody to do this mass communication now. From July to mid-August, we're going to finalize the design and complete our content migration. Again, Alyssa and Steve have been doing the real yeoman's work on that. And then in mid-August, as we start the school year, promote the mobile app, share helpful resources, launch the new website. You will navigate to it the same way you have before, just westwoodk12.ma.us. But we are excited about this, and hopefully it will help make it easier from a family perspective, help make it easier from our perspective, so we're able to update more regularly and have that greater seamless communication across the board. So happy to answer any questions from the committee around this transition.
Do you have a group for beta testing?
Yeah, so we are not quite there yet on the beta testing side yet. Once we do, then yeah, we're going to want to do some testing with that. No
Okay,
question
I
about
would
it. Yeah.
encourage you to include staff, faculty,
Yeah.
but also parents.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because I know that we have a lot to say about the website.
Yeah, yeah.
And it shouldn't just be us.
No, I would agree with that. So.
I heard you mention calendar a couple different times, so and I'm just kind of confirming, double confirming that the PTO can put their events in, or could. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying they should or could, but can they? Is my question.
Yeah, so I would hesitate to have the PTO directly put their events in because we want to make sure that there's a level, but through, for example, the admin assistant at the school, like that would be a mechanism to have things on the school calendar.
Okay.
And will it also, is this like a big, like, will it have you know, like theater productions on it and.
That is our expectation, is all those things go
Okay.
in one place, so you're not,
Like-
don't have a separate calendar for performing arts and a
It's-
separate calendar for athletics and a
Right,
separate,
right,
like,
it's
there
all
are.
one calendar.
Yeah, or it can be, right? So they're all in one place, and then you can choose to filter to what you want
Right.
to see or what you don't
Okay,
want to see.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
In search. AI enabled or not?
You know, that's a question I don't know the answer to. I will assume by your question that the preference is to have that be enabled.
Like,
I'm assuming.
Only if it works well.
Yeah.
so.
no, it works.
Yeah, I mean, the cert, right, I'll just go to show
A lot of companies are doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
So I'll show I don't know the answer to that question
Yeah.
just specifically off the top of my head, but just showing the mock-up, you can see the search icon in the upper right-hand corner.
okay.
So again, I think that's part of the beta testing, is to make sure that when, like, we search for something, it actually shows up.
Because I won't talk about someone else's website in town. The search capability there is like beyond bad. So, I mean, that's how people work.
Yeah.
You know, they live, they
Absolutely.
search. They don't, they look, and if they don't see it, they search.
Yeah, so I think between that and the fact that, like, these things are here because these are the things that people most commonly look for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so instead of hunting and pecking for lunch menus, like, let's just put the most heavily navigated things right there. But yeah, I'll double check on the search functionality. So
Tim, one more question. Probably not the only question. This is my jam. Will you have some sort of analytics, Google Analytics, something that can
Yeah.
say, how are people using it? Where are they
Yes.
not finding things
Yep.
that we can then,
Yep, the ability to do that both on the website side and on the mass communication side,
Right.
right? So the ability to say, to essentially do diagnostics, you know, these many emails were sent, here's how many were opened up, here's how many bounced back, all those kinds of things are part of that process as well.
Right.
So,
I have a quick question regarding like the communication point. Because I know a lot of elementary schools and all the schools use a certain app themselves to communicate out for parents or like their school directories. Is that going to be a function on here as well, or is that going to be totally separate?
So not on day one, right? I want to acknowledge that, like, to make any kind of a transition like that, like, you need time, you need training, you need all those sorts of things that between now and September 1 is not going to happen, right? I think that's one of the things that we are going to continue to explore, is there is the ability to essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong with any part of this, right? But when we went through the demos, there is the ability through the live feed, right, through essentially these pieces here to sort of replicate that. The question, though, is if that is actually if we lose functionality by doing that, because the tools we're using because they're specifically designed for that purpose, then we don't necessarily want to lose functionality just in the case of that. So, like, for example, we are looking at how do we embed, so like SMORE is one of the platforms that a lot of folks use, right? So how can we take the code from SMORE and embed it into Aptitude in a way that makes it seamless from the parent perspective, or from the caregiver perspective, but also allows us to maintain that functionality and that we want for communication that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, anything else on this one?
Great to see the progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, happy to be coming along, and again, thanks to, and I should say that when we looked at vendors, I also want to thank, we brought a bunch of staff members together, both from an end user side and from a content updater side, to get some feedback around who we're bringing in. So, let's move to curriculum review updates, and I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin.
Thank you. So in the fall, I came to you with the curriculum review processes and where we were at the start of the year, and so I wanted to close out this year with an update on each of the processes that we've been running throughout the year. As you saw in the fall, and I'm sure you're well aware by now, the curriculum review process is something that we do across all departments and content areas to make sure that we are always examining what are we doing, what's working well, and how do we grow and stay aligned with the standards and the best practices. Nope, that's fine. So this is a slide that I showed you back in the fall to tell you that we were launching curriculum review processes for K-5 literacy, 9 through 12 guidance. We were continuing reviews that had already started the year prior in both visual and performing arts. And then we are in the implementation phase of reviews in wellness, world language, library media, digital literacy, and I know that there are other departments that would say, we're still in implementation too. We're still working through those recommendations that came out of our curriculum review, but those all concluded 2 years ago, prior to me coming on board. And then I had forecasted that up next would be science and engineering. So I'm going to take a few minutes to talk through where sort of each one is now, and you can pause me at any point with questions. We did go ahead and launch, as you know, the literacy, and since I gave an update on this last meeting, I won't talk too much about it now, other than to say the last time we met, I shared with you that we were gearing up for our pilot in ARC Core and EL education. We're further along in that process now, so Marisa Weiler, our K-5 literacy coordinator, has been working hard. We have lots of teachers that wanted to pilot, which is amazing. So the details of the pilot are shaping up. What it is looking like now is that we have 2 schools, Sheehan and Pine Hill, where pretty much a teacher team, a duo at every grade level almost, is piloting a curriculum. At Sheehan it's EL, and at Pine Hill it's the ARC Core curriculum. MJ and Downey don't have as many teacher teams participating. There's 1 or 2 teacher teams in each of those schools, and oh gosh, I'm gonna get it. MJ is doing ARC and Downey is doing EL. The reason to concentrate, why we're focusing at Sheehan and Pine Hill, are twofold. One being that's where a lot of teachers expressed interest, and when we have people that are ready and willing to take on something challenging, we want to take advantage of that. But also it helps us concentrate our resources in terms of professional development and materials, having more people in the same building so that you can work not only with your teacher team partner, but vertically to align and to learn the new curriculum and to learn the new resources together. So that is where we are with the literacy pilot. For families, if your teacher is piloting a new curriculum, you will learn about this in the fall. It will be shared out with families. Back to school night will be a great opportunity to ask questions, see a little bit more detail about what the program entails and what your kiddo's literacy time will look like. And if your kiddo is not in a classroom that is piloting the new materials, your student will continue to receive the comprehensive literacy program that we have. So that will include foundations for for phonics and Heggerty for phonemic awareness, and our core reading and writing programs. So that's the literacy update. Guidance, you can go on to the next slide. The guidance review, we had our second meeting of the steering committee today, actually, this afternoon. All through the fall, we had partnered with MASCA to conduct the program audit. Every curriculum review has an audit phase, and because guidance was a new area for us to go through this review process, we did partner with MASCA to get their expertise on it. So the steering committee has convened 2 times. They've reviewed the reports, and today we started the work of prioritizing some of the recommendations. So that crew has been invaluable in helping us understand different perspectives and what is working really well about our guidance program, and has set us up really well to hit the ground running in the fall. I do want to acknowledge we had 2 new students join our crew today, and I think a new parent since I made this slide. So I'm going to need to update the slide with all of our steering committee members so that we can honor them when this goes up on the website. But a huge thank you to Maya for your participation and all the members.
Maya, what's your insights on this so far?
I thought the 2 sessions so far have been really good. Today in particular, we really dove into the recommendations, and we kind of broke up into sort of cohort groups. So I was part of the parent group. There was a teacher group. There was sort of the school psychologist group. I don't know what we called it.
We call them the mental health group.
The mental health group. And then we had the student group. And frankly, we spent probably the most time with the students. Like they had such great recommendations, such good insights. I felt, like as a parent, we were able to share very openly what we thought was great. So there's still work to be done, but today was a great session. Yeah. And the one thing that came across, and I said this in the meeting, the one thing that did come across in this MASCA report is how deeply our guidance department cares about our kids. That rang through every single section that they reviewed. So that was probably the most impressive thing to me, the thing that really resonated the most with me. So.
And do you know if my question was on that exit survey?
It was not. Oh, on the exit survey.
On the exit survey for students, it is.
I'd love to see that data.
What was the question?
It's a question on how much college resources kids use
Yeah.
in Westwood.
Right.
So they were gonna ask the kids as they're part of their, seniors as part of their exit survey.
Okay.
So we should have that information. We can definitely bring it back to the steering committee in the fall.
And use it, yeah.
And use it. So the two reviews that had kicked off the year prior and continued this year were visual arts and performing arts. I don't have much to report about visual arts. We were deep into the audit phase of collecting information about the state of the programming, and we had a leadership shift mid-year. And so at that point, it didn't make sense to try to move forward until we had the new leader in place. So I am excited that we'll have Zoe Johnson, who's a current teacher at the high school. She is stepping in as interim director of visual arts beginning next year. And so that review will kick it back off again in the fall with the new leadership for the department. For performing arts, that review continued through the program audit. We looked at surveys, alignment to standards, looking at how the Portrait of a Graduate sort of mapped onto the curriculum that is being taught and the departmental vision. And so the steering committee has been meeting throughout the year, and where we have finished up this year is working on the priority areas for the next phase of the review. So we've audited the state of the department and have narrowed in on 3 or 4 priorities that we are going to work on next year in terms of developing, doing any research we need to do, developing a plan for implementation and communication and professional learning to make shifts in those areas. And Joanna, you've been a member of this, so if you want to speak to the process or where we are.
This is a little bit of a passion project for me because I do support so greatly the performing arts, especially in the schools. But what has been so interesting about this is all the different ways that all the different schools approach their performing arts, both on a curriculum level, but also through the electives, especially as you get into the high school. And I'm excited to, can think about where we go from here and how can we, reconsider our electives and how can we find more opportunities for our students to engage with performing arts. It's been a lot of fun. It's a good group.
A common theme that's been coming up in, I think, all the reviews that I've participated on so far, it's certainly in the guidance and in the visual arts as well, is the communication and messaging piece of people not knowing necessarily what exactly is going on or what offerings are available or what this elective is versus that elective. So the trend of we need to message more, we need to communicate out more about what we're doing and how it happens in the schools is definitely a common thread. In implementation, so this work is going on not with steering committee meetings any longer. Those met and concluded and issued the curriculum review recommendations in the last few years. So the work now is happening at the department level in the early release Wednesdays and a little bit of summer work as well. And it's largely led by the department head who's working to implement the recommendations from the review. They're all like plugging along the curriculum work, the scope and sequencing work that's been coming out from each of those groups has been really wonderful to see and helpful to have as models for other departments. The one thing that I want to note around wellness, you see there's a link in this slide. This is our first year of junior electives in wellness, and next year we'll be rolling up to seniors. And the link there is to a 3-minute video of juniors talking about their wellness elective experience. So if you want to feel really happy about our wellness programming and our students and what they're getting from it, be sure to click that link and watch that video. For the only other piece that I wanted to note was that in both wellness and world language, recommendations from those curriculum reviews came out to expand programming, particularly at the middle school level, in both wellness, the health class piece, and for world language to expand down to 6th grade. We've been talking about those. We've been puzzling over how do we make this happen. It's a tightly packed school day, and so any recommendation to expand programming means that we have to take a little bit of time to examine how do we make that fit, how do we make it work. So that is still in the works. We're still working on it, and in the fall, Principal Redmond and I will convene a team to really closely examine that middle school exploratory schedule and try to make some recommendations for how we can carry out those curriculum review recommendations that were made.
I'd like to propose, future chair, that we talk about that as a committee sometime in the fall, because these things were done in some ways ages ago, and I'm not sure, they've all kind of done these silos, and I think this committee should have some insight around where we think those trade-offs should be done, is on time and resources, because there are budget implications. Because to me, it's crazy that we don't have a 7th and 8th grade anything in wellness, especially in light of Metro West results of, things that are going on. And we should have the discussion, not about the 6th grade, whether or not I want to have that discussion open forum here, as opposed to being done in some secret hallways down down the hall. But at least that's how I feel.
Yeah, if I can, I say absolutely, there needs to be a conversation at the committee level, right? Because there are, the implications are multiple at the committee
Yeah.
level, right?
You're
There
right.
is essentially like, where are we putting our priorities? Where are we putting our
Yeah.
budgetary resources, right? Because if
Yeah.
you are adding in one area, it means you're necessarily subtracting in another area. I think the reason these need to happen simultaneously is because we also need to know, like, just to have an open brainstorming session without knowing what is potentially implementable.
Yeah.
Like that's why we,
Yeah.
like, but a conversation around like the minute details of scheduling, like, this is probably not the
No, I
appropriate
agree.
point for that. But absolutely, the committee needs to be very involved in that process throughout.
Can move on to the next slide. And then my last note for you, up until now, we had been saying up next is science and engineering, and on this slide, you'll note that it changed to future. So in our curriculum review process, we have a cycle, and we try to stick to every 8 to 10 years, a program or curriculum is being audited and being reviewed in this way. Science and engineering would be up next. They were in our calendar to be up next. The last time that I have seen a curriculum review report from them is 2016, so we're exactly at the 10-year mark. However, in conversations with our science department heads and coordinators, we have decided that we won't launch next year with science and engineering. We'll pause it for a year, mostly due to the changes that are happening with MCAS at the state level. So for the last 2 years, we've been, the state has been field testing new science and STE MCAS assessments at 5th grade and 8th grade. We have participated in those field tests, so we currently have 1 year of data. This past year gave us our 2nd year of data from the new assessments. And the team really felt like until those assessments are implemented, we have more information about what exactly the questions and the tasks are looking like, what sort of like where the goalposts are in terms of how we assess student learning around science and technology and engineering, that it would be premature to start the curriculum review process. That the science standards have not changed since 2016, so often we end up doing reviews faster than our 8 to 10 years cycle because the state changes the standards or the framework, so we need to respond. That hasn't happened in this content area, and our performance in this area is very strong here in Westwood. And so for all those reasons, we felt like, you know what, let's focus next year. We've got literacy, we've got guidance, we'll have visual arts kicking back in and other reviews still continuing. So we're gonna put a pause on that and not start it next year. In 2027, that will be on deck. And I think that is the end of my curriculum review update.
What's the current status of the math review? Like, when would that be up in the schedule?
I will have to look.
Yeah.
I should have the schedule up as I'm talking, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at folks out there, probably would have been done maybe a couple of years prior to I'm thinking around, because there was a major implementation at the middle school level, right?
Yeah, so,
Yeah, we did. We started implementation based on the committee about a year before the official rollout happened, so probably 2 years ago.
Okay.
Year and a half to 2 years.
So, yeah, that probably puts us, I think if we're looking at an 8 to 10 year cycle, maybe about halfway through that cycle right now.
Okay.
in the cycle document that I inherited coming on board, it shows that the mathematics review finished up in 2024. So I feel like we were a little ahead of that because it wasn't ongoing when I started. So that would put us a little bit later.
Okay.
And as we see with K-5 literacy, there's sometimes reasons that we jump the cycle and don't stick to the 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think that feels appropriate, right? I mean, being responsive to what we see in the data, right? So I think that sounds very reasonable.
All right, and then just the very last thing in the superintendent's update, which I don't have a slide for, but it's linked, is the TEC Quarterly update, which you have, and you can see what's going on at our collaborative that we're a member of. So with that, Maya, I'll turn it back over to you for the chair's update.
I don't have much on the chair's update. We're just trying to wrap up the end of the year, get there. I don't know if there's other liaison reports. Anyone?
It was the PTO, but nothing really to report substantively.
Okay.
I'll just say a word or two about the PTO forum. We had a PTO forum, was that last week?
Last week, yeah.
Just last week. Gosh. And I thought it was a great conversation. This group, meets rather infrequently, but after that meeting, it was decided we probably could and should meet more frequently. There was a lot of energy around our facility study and that rollout. There was a lot of conversation around
The coalition.
the coalition work, of course. And it was a good gathering of cross-section of the PTO leads and their desire to be engaged and their desire to be able to, share information with their families and be a conduit for those conversations. So it was a reminder that these, different liaison assignments yield fruit and are valuable, and especially as we're going into a new building project possibly, then we have a mechanism for pushing that information out in yet another form.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to say a few things, positive things, I think. No, for a change, no. Graduation here is really amazing, so I'd like to thank all the people involved in graduation. It is so well done, every aspect. So just want to highlight that. And just, unfortunately, Amy isn't here, but just to highlight Amy, thank Amy, wherever she is, for her years of service, her love of kids and her energy. If you just saw her running around that high school, it's just amazing. And I also think the Portrait of the Graduate is an example. That was her idea, to have kids design that. And then Donna, oh man, we could do a roast on you all day. But thank you. I always loved your leadership style. I call it no nonsense, which I always appreciated. And Donna was there for me 13 years ago when my life went through some tough times. So my kids and you, thank you for that. So best of luck.
It's a pleasure.
Best of luck.
And are wonderful.
Thank you, Donna. My kids also had you in their lives, and thank you. I'm not going to say anymore. I can't.
Martha Jones will always hold, she too, will hold a very, very special place in my heart. It was a wonderful experience working with the people there, especially the parents. Just a great community that continues to this day because of leadership that came behind me too. So thank you both for making it part of the terrific place that it is.
#1 in the state one year, right?
Yeah, U.S. World and News.
Yeah.
First one ever, first elementary school ever named that.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open it up to public participation. I don't see anyone from the public here, but I am opening it up. So if anyone would like to come forward and speak, you are welcome to. Seeing no one, I am closing public participation. Moving to discussion items. So first on the list is the superintendent evaluation. This is, the fun part where we get to do a public evaluation. So I will say a few words on that. So the evaluation looks at 4 areas: instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. So I'm just going to say a few words about each of those sections. For instructional leadership, I think that, as the curriculum reviews are showing, I think you've led the district very well in looking at curriculum in view of other factors, right? And looking at budget, looking at schedule, looking at the curriculum, not just in a sort of a little small piece of what we do, but in the context of everything else. I think the discussion around, foreign language at the middle school is a good example of that. And the development of the district strategy, I think, has been incredibly successful, and particularly the portrait of a graduate, right? That process was exemplary, I think, very well received by everybody. It really came out with a beautiful end product. In terms of sort of action and focus items, we should take that portrait of a graduate and run with it now. And really, I think the goal would be to collaborate with central office and with admin council to implement that into the buildings, right? What does that look like in K through 12? What is the pathway to bringing that portrait of a graduate to life in the schools? That can be a focus for 26, 27. You absolutely have trust in your team to implement the district strategy, and you give them the authority to do that. I think that in connection with that, continuing to collaborate, communicate with your teams to ensure that the teams on the ground in the buildings are able to speak to, advocate for, and coach the enactment of these decisions in teaching and learning. I think, the collaboration piece there and really making sure that everyone from all the way up from you, all the way down to everyone in the buildings understands exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. Management and operations, you have such a deep understanding of the budget and municipal finance. It's been such a pleasure to see you work on really, really difficult situations, not just in our budget, but the whole municipal budget, and really come up with creative solutions for where we can, navigate some of these situations. It's been a little bit of a bumpy year for the budget, we know that. But I think that we're gonna come out with a much better process, and a lot of that is thanks to you being able to look at the budget holistically and say, look, I see this, this, and this, and I think we wouldn't have been able to have the tough conversations that we had with the town, and also implement the changes that we're going to implement, hopefully, without your level of knowledge there. You've also been able to, you've had to coordinate multiple hiring searches, and find creative ways to solve for short-term staffing problems. Clearly, we were in a panic at the beginning of the school year. You were able to navigate that. I think actions and focus items for 26, 27, looking at our hiring process and the HR function as a whole and making sure how can we make it more efficient? How can we increase response time? How can we put processes in place that will provide clarity? I would leverage your team to free up more of your time to do these other initiatives. And also, looking at our hiring process and making sure it's consistent across the district. Family and community engagement. We very much appreciate your active engagement with stakeholders. This investment that you have done reflected in an incredibly strong community engagement with the facility study, right? The fact that we got 1,500 responses on a survey and 91% buy-in of the ultimate decision that we made was truly a testament to the amount of work you did in the community, just making sure you were there, giving out information, taking in feedback, answering questions. You have an open door policy that has been appreciated by parents and residents alike. You're always willing to speak to somebody. You've implemented the district newsletter, which I think has been very helpful. It provides much appreciated additional communications to families. And I think in terms of actions and focus for 2026, 27, I think, working with admin council to formalize communication strategies for both routine announcements and urgent situations, so that we have consistent communications coming out of the district, both in timing and in substance, and reviewing, who the recipient group should be, and again, looking to your team for additional resources and support in that area. Finally, professional culture. You maintain a work-life balance as a priority. That I have seen that. I appreciate that as a working parent. You give your team the freedom to do the same. Not all workplaces can say that. So I think that is very much appreciated. You have a strong level of trust in your team. You allow them to make decisions and to function in their roles. And you are consistently receptive to feedback, and you say the damn thing, right? I think in terms of action focus for 2026-27, we have a lot of new people coming in. So I think, in my opinion, I haven't spoken to the committee about this, but in my opinion, I think our number one priority for your role in 2026-27 is going to be relationship building, both within central office, with your team, with admin council, with, you know, people in the schools, particularly with this high number of new leaders coming into the district. But I think, you know, the other things I've talked about are certainly important, but this really is a primary focus that at least I think is really important. And some of the things, you know, there we've talked about working with admin council to really define a clear role of purpose for that group. I think that group is incredibly valuable, and I think it's a great way to really ensure that all of these initiatives are implemented, and ensuring that, you know, the people in the room are in the room. The people that need to be in the room are in the room, right, for all of these sort of initiatives that we're doing. And really tapping into the deep institutional knowledge and experience of our existing staff, in addition to these new perspectives that are coming in. And so I think, you know, communication, collaboration, and really focusing on a relationship building for 2026-27, in my perspective, is really sort of the number one focus area for next year. But overall, I just want to thank you for your leadership, and we are excited for this coming year. Lots of change, but lots of good stuff. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for that. And I want to acknowledge, like, I deeply appreciate the relationship I have with, certainly I've had with the three of you over the last 3 years. I know Katie and Nick were developing those relationships right now. I certainly, I think ultimately we all want to grow professionally, personally. And so I certainly take the feedback from the committee, appreciate it, and look forward to our next steps. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I said one other thing. I work in HR, unfortunately, but you know, one thing I always tell CEOs, so I'll call you the equivalent, is think about time and be intentional how you spend your time, because you can't, unfortunately, make more of that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it even gets down to looking at how you spent looking at your calendar last year and saying how you spent it, but being intentional about how you spend that this year, because these things we're talking about, building relationships, takes time, and that means you can't spend time elsewhere. It may sound obvious, but I think being very intentional about that, and even just thinking about how you block that time, and think about next year how much time you want to spend X, Y, Z. I think that would be my one suggestion as well. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions, comments?
I'm looking forward to working with you as chair
Yeah.
to help see these things through.
Thank you. Look forward to working with both you as chair and obviously with all of you. So thank you.
All right, moving on to the special education update.
Sure. So I'll have Lori join us once we kind of get to the Q&A part, but I'll let you not be up there in the meantime. So obviously there's a whole memo that you have as part of the committee. This will be posted public on the website so we can share this with everybody. So I will acknowledge, like, the presentation here is a little bit of an out loud memo, but I think it's also important to share it in the public sphere. So just for the framing of this, in January, our special education review report was publicly presented. It contained 8 sections of commendations, findings, and recommendations. And this update is really designed to highlight areas where we've made progress during this school year and/or in preparation for the upcoming year. It is organized into the 8 sections, recognizing that some of these actions bridge multiple sections, as they should in any organization. And I want to acknowledge this is not necessarily an exhaustive list, but it's designed to really highlight those things that I think are the highest leverage in these areas. So beginning with Area 1, which is around organizational structure and leadership, we did some of this through the budget process. So we examined the administrative needs of all of our elementary schools. It resulted in an increase in the budget of a 0.5 FTE for elementary student services department head and a restructuring of those department head roles. So our structure for next year will be 1 full-time position serving Pine Hill, 1 full-time position serving Downey, MJ, and Sheehan, and 1 full-time position for preschool and out of district. We are continuing to go through the interview process for those positions right now, and hope to have some updates in the near future regarding those. And I don't know if you want me to stop for questions along the way, or if you want me to go through the whole thing. I'll defer to you here, Maya. I realized because as a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just go through it?
Okay, we'll come back. Also in Area 1, so it asked us to look at, do we have, and some of this like also goes into the resource allocation question, but the approved budget includes a .6 FTE psychologist position at Pine Hill. This not only serves the purpose of better meeting caseload ratios, but it also frees up the adjustment counselor at Pine Hill to do the role they're intended to do, similar to other buildings, where previously they were essentially serving the role of a psychologist that they were not able to perform. So this right sizes that support better for psychologist and adjustment counselor at Pine Hill. When I say we, it's really Lori is having meetings with related service providers, so those are like OTs, PTs, SLPs, et cetera, to examine caseload and workload to ensure a more equitable distribution of assignments. And then in terms of the recommendation about alignment of practices, so there will be training with our district's legal counsel is scheduled for our admin team in late June. After school lets out, we do a full day training, so we're going to have our attorney come in and do a training for our admin team. Area 2 is around special education rates. So we talked in this area a lot about executive functioning. During this year, our district IAs received professional development regarding executive functioning and how to support students with those skill deficits in the classroom environment. I also want to acknowledge, and we'll talk about the new collective bargaining agreement, both in Section 5 and in a separate agenda item. There's going to be more of an opportunity to do that training with IAs, not necessarily just EF, but in multiple areas through the new contract. At the same time, it is about all staff, and so a recurring theme in next year's PD will be the connection between executive functioning and the work that we are doing this year on universal design for learning. So how do we make more explicit how to help build those executive functioning skills for students in every classroom in the gen ed setting, and not just have it be solely the purview of special education, because it needs to be. Area 3 is around the continuum of IEP service and specialized programs. There's a recommendation about how do we align not just the program exit and entry criteria, how do we align program names from preschool to elementary to middle school to high school to 18 to 22. That work has been underway. There is an internal initial draft that still needs a significant more internal review and vetting process. So that internal review will continue. Our goal is of being operationalized next year, knowing this. That won't necessarily be at the start of the year, but to work towards the operation. I have not been able to say this word all day. Operationalization of it.
Can you spell it?
No, not right now. Next year. Area 4 is around our WABA programs. And so there's a recommendation basically saying to bring somebody in who has specialized expertise in intensive autism programs in the public school setting to do this work. So I'm happy to share that we are contracting with Case Collaborative Cases based out of Concord to conduct an external specialized review of the program district-wide. Because there are so few institutions that do this, and there are even fewer that doing in the public setting, like you will find private schools that do this, but that can lead to recommendations that are not implementable in the public school setting. So their dance card is a little filled up, so we're not able to start that review until January of 27, doing some records review initiating in December. But that review will include on-site visits, record reviews, focus groups with stakeholders. I think in a more focused way, but similar to the review that Bill and Karen did when they did the special ed audit a year ago, but focused particularly on WABA, with the final reports with recommendations scheduled to be issued by April of 27. Area 5 is around IAs and ABA tutors. We do have a new collective bargaining agreement settled with the IAs and ABA tutors. I'm happy that they ratified that agreement yesterday, and it's on the committee's agenda tonight to ratify on our side. I'll talk more about the details of these with that agenda item, but the new agreement ensures that both groups have more competitive wage scales. It has incentives that encourage retention and discourage mid-year resignations. And as I talked about before, also creates additional opportunities for professional development as part of our overall approach to growth. I am really grateful and thankful for the collaborative relationship we had at the bargaining table with those groups who are now consolidated as one union. Knowing in May you talked about the personnel crisis we had at the beginning of the year, this will hopefully go a long way to help restore, I think is the right word, where we are in our relationship with folks in these really critically important roles. Area 6 is around resource allocation. So talked about this in Area 1, but our comprehensive caseload and workload analysis is currently being conducted. It's done in consultation with teachers, related service providers, psychologists, BCBAs, with a final internal report by June 30th. And then the question becomes, how do we operationalize after that? At the same time, resource allocation is not just about special education resources, it's also about gen ed resources. And at last meeting, we talked about the reallocation of math specialists, literacy paraprofessionals, to be more responsive to levels of students' needs so that we can provide greater support for Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions based upon need, which will help also with, if we can, the goal is if we can provide kids the in-time support that they need, then the intention is that it will help reduce our rates of students that require specialized services. In our preschool program, we also talked about this extensively during the budget process. So changes in the approved budget for next year to expand our preschool capacity to provide the age-appropriate inclusion for our preschool WABA students by opening a 4th integrated preschool classroom at Downey and by relocating the preschool WABA program from Pine Hill to Downey for next year. And then finally, under MTSS, our team throughout this year has been actively engaged in a comprehensive building of understanding around the MTSS framework, tiered intervention strategies, UDL principles, working to establish shared definitions and understandings, mapping our tiered strategies, and identifying next steps, roles, and responsibilities. MTSS is not a one-year project. It is a multi-year project. And so that work will continue through next year. We are also working to create an enhanced DCAP, a district curriculum accommodation plan. That work is underway to establish a consistent district-wide approach to interventions and accommodations with a targeted full implementation by the end of next school year. And then finally, at the elementary level, our principals and math and literacy specialists implemented data team meetings after the winter benchmark window to examine those grade level trends in data to inform interventions and instruction. And that process will continue to be reviewed and revised to establish consistency and alignment. And again, this is not a one and done thing, right? This is a constant revision about how we're using student data in a meaningful way to determine how we're allocating staff and what we are doing is working to be able to help students get back on track with their grade level peers. So I've said a lot. I don't know if I want to thank Caitlin and Lori for helping co-author this. I want to thank the members of the admin team for all of their work with this and all the teachers and staff that are involved in these conversations as well. So with that, I think probably best to turn it over for questions or comments. And Lori, I'll just ask you to come up if you can too, because there may be questions that Lori or Caitlin can certainly answer better than I can. So.
Questions?
I have a question. I'll start. So in area 2, you talk about IAs receiving professional development around executive education, or excuse me, executive functioning, and then planning for district-wide professional development in 26-27. I wondered if those IAs, where a child may not have a specific IEP goal around executive education, or even have an IEP at all, will those IAs be available to perhaps do one-on-one with some students who may need a little bit of extra support in that area?
So I'll take a first crack at that unless somebody else wants to. So this is actually one of these challenges, right? I mean, you've hear me talk about our, the core value of we all have a collective responsibility for all of our students, and as part of that collective responsibility conversation. I also want to recognize, though, that our IAs are tied to service delivery on IEP grids, and so there is not necessarily a whole bunch of
Free.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
a
have
better
a lot of
word.
free time?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of free time, right?
Yeah,
I think
sure,
that we want to be meaningful and thoughtful about how we provide those opportunities. Whether or not it is IAs that help support that or not, I think that's a different question than is there somebody to support?
Sure.
And who that somebody is may look different from context to context based upon the staffing of the building. So I don't know if there's anything that either of you would add to that.
So following up on that,
Yeah.
so the PD that we're talking about, is that for all, who's the audience of the PD?
So there's a lot of audiences for
Yeah.
the PD. For this spring, we had a specific session where IAs were stayed for the early release Wednesday, were compensated for that time, and a session was run by Erin Banty at Thurston around executive functioning strategies and how to support our students in those skills. We have been meeting over the last 2 weeks with a small representative group of IAs and ABAs from across the district in different levels to get feedback and input on next year's PD plan. So in the new contract, the IAs and ABAs are now starting 2 days before students start, which gives us a great opportunity to provide some professional development right then. And then they come and they stay and are compensated for 6 of the early release Wednesdays throughout the year. So with that small group's help, we've been identifying the topics, identifying the delivery mechanisms. You know, is it K to 12, or is this a targeted elementary or a high school piece? Is it targeted by program? Because again, our IAs have such different responsibilities depending on their grade level and role, whether they're aligned with a program or a learning center. So trying to tease out and use this group to help us understand what's the best way to give everybody really relevant PD throughout the next year. So that is a work in progress. There is also, when I say that there's a recurring theme in next year's professional development, that is district-wide. That's everybody. So our best opportunity is that full day PD day in right after Thanksgiving weekend. And so the theme of that day, it'll continue in a similar format that we've had for the last few years of a keynote speaker who will give us sort of our foundation and our motivation and inspiration to keep learning in this area, and then educator-led sessions around universal design and executive functioning strategies to increase student agency, and then some building-based time to work through and implement some plans. So
Okay.
I don't know if I've answered your question.
You have. I guess my concern is that, you know, one of the recommendations out of that report was that executive functioning should be dealt with at a gen ed level, right?
Mhm.
And if most of the training is for the IAs and the ABAs, then I'm concerned that, or maybe this is like a slow progress of trying to shift to gen ed, but I want to make sure that that piece of the report, because I do think that there is a whole handful of kids who need this sort of support, but don't necessarily need it in the special ed context. And the more we can, you know, kind of, I know that our gen ed teachers have a lot to do, but, you know, the more we can kind of build it into the curriculums that we have.
Yeah, I would
and I'm
say-
not sure one day is enough to do that.
You're
That's my
absolutely
concern.
right. Yes.
And so I think I would just say that when we talk about that rollout, it's a question of what the available time is, right? So we actually had the available time this spring with IAs.
Yeah.
With the new contract, we have the available time with IAs before the school year starts in a way that we don't have with teachers contractually. And so that's why that rollout is a little bit more deferred on the teacher side,
Right.
right? But then the question about what's the embedded work that happens after that, because it should not be a one and done thing, to what you were just saying, Rosanna, if you want to.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I will add, other than agreeing with the premise that, yes, this is a long-term investment and we won't be able to train everybody deeply next year in the time that we have. There are a couple of summer workshops that are happening this summer. We offer to folks paid opportunities over the summer to lead curricular projects. We have a couple of teams that are developing executive functioning lessons to embed in our 6th grade curriculum and in other pieces. So I think it's one of these, like, there are many bites at the apple to try to
Yeah.
make sure that we are approaching the gap and filling the gap in a way that is sustainable.
Okay, thank
So
you.
definitely more to come.
All right.
And if I just might add, especially looking at this report, the importance of introducing some of these skills in skill development before 6th grade, and then having that continuity, having those skills build from as they go, probably from, I'm not the educator, I leave that to you, but like from that 4th grade area, 5th grade and 6th grade. So by the time they get to 6th grade, they have those skills. Because as the independence, you know, as the students are practicing their independence and having the opportunity to, you know, learn in more vague settings, they have the ability to kind of organize their thoughts and organize their work in a way that they already have learned those skills. And it's not like just take off the steering, you know, the training wheels and off you go. There's sometimes that's scary for us parents.
I have a question regarding Area 1, if that was complete. I know with the shuffling of the student services department heads, now one person will be, or is it one person or just one full-time employee? So it might be a number of individuals or just
No,
one
these are,
individual?
these will be
Three
three
people.
separate full-time individuals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how will it look? Because I'm assuming the workload is appropriate for the individuals, and that's how it's all broken out. So how would it look for Downey, Martha Jones, and Sheehan, given that one person's now going to be serving those 3 schools, whereas before we had someone who was a very present person and servicing 2 schools? How is that going to shake out physically, right? You can't be in 3 places at once, but knowing that they'll be at multiple meetings every day and having the different specialized programs within each school, how's that gonna look for parents and caregivers?
For parents. It-
Or
yeah,
and the kids, obviously.
Right. So, I mean, some of this is still to be flushed out when we find our candidate, but they will be spending multiple parts of each week in each of the buildings. So it may look like they spend a morning in one building, an afternoon in another building. It may look like, typically when we organize our meeting schedules, it's one day of the week. So those might be need to be 3 separate days in the week. And, I think it's all about accessibility. And that the person is accessible not only to parents, but to staff, to
Yeah.
principals. So part of that ends up being like, what does the internal communication system look like?
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think just to echo what Lori said, right? So where there is a defined meeting day for each building, that is a general, just for the sake of argument, right? Monday is Downey's day, Wednesday is MJ's day, Friday is Sheehan's day, So that provides a level of consistency from a scheduling perspective. And then the rest of that would be, whether or not that is scheduled consistently from week to week, or that's flexible depending on the needs at a given point in time. Those are some of the details that we'll have to iron out as we work through this.
And presumably accessibility means the person will be available via email, even if they're not physically in
Yep.
the building, and responsive.
Yeah.
Then I just have one other question too, because you mentioned you said fourth preschool class is gonna be at Downey? So there's
Oh, did
gonna
I
be-
say, yeah, no, it is Downey, yeah.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so so it'll be the classes at, here in the high school, and then the entire WABA program is gonna be at Downey in addition to another preschool class.
So there will be a total of 5 preschool classrooms.
Okay.
3 integrated classrooms at the current footprint of the high school, and then an integrated classroom and a preschool WABA classroom at
Yes.
Downey.
Okay.
The K-5 WABA
Yes,
program
yes.
is still at Pine Hill.
I meant
Yeah.
the only preschool, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Obviously, this doesn't address all of the recommendations that were in the finding, understandably. Can you just share a little bit more about what the plan is sort of from here and the next steps that, we and others should anticipate around this?
So what I caution to do, right, I think there are enough things in here in these areas that are steps that we need to continue to take over this summer and into next year, that trying to tack on, if you try to do 28 things at once, you're not going to do any of them well, and we're already trying to do 15 on this list. And so I think really in terms of immediate next steps, it's focusing in these areas that we highlighted here where there's continued work to be done, whether that is around the exit entry criteria in the program descriptions, whether that is around looking at what do we do with the analysis of caseloads and pieces like that. It's ensuring that our preschool program is up and running operationally in a really successful way at Downey. So that's really the next step. I think after that, if we were talking about a year from now, probably not a full year from now, but at some point during next year, let's do an assessment of where we are on these recommendations. What can we now say we've reached a point where we feel comfortable that this one is falling off and we can take on something else, right? I think that's the way that I would think about this. Some of that is also contingent upon budget, right? The whole concept around in Area 1 around implementing team chairs. They said that's a 4.2 FTE, roughly speaking, increase. I can't imagine we're going to be in a scenario in developing the FY28 budget where we're adding another 4.2 FTE for team chairs. I'm just assuming, just kind of given where we have historically been. I don't think that's a bad assumption. But there may be some other areas where there are some structures where we can say, okay, we feel comfortable here, what's the next phase in that process? But we want to do that with the knowledge of what has worked and what hasn't worked in these first 12-ish months of implementation.
That's really helpful
Yeah.
context, and I think probably the areas that you shortlisted here make a lot of sense
Yeah.
to me, at least, as relatively person, but relative to some of the things that were found, the findings, so. thank you for
Yeah,
that.
and I'll say, just for some context around that, when we met as an admin council to go through the review, we went through sort of looking at what can we do. There's I'm sure you've done something similar, if not exactly the same. Like, we put things along the axes of ease of implementation and impact, right, to figure out, like, you want to do things in that upper right-hand corner, things that are that are easier to implement and have greater impact, and avoid those things that are in that lower left-hand corner, right? So, like, what we have looked at here, they're not just all upper right-hand, like MTSS is not an upper right-hand corner thing, right? That is a multi-year process. But that's some of the framing for why these rose to the top in terms of our immediate actions.
That's great. Thank you.
The only other thing I would add is that I'm really looking forward to work with the admin council over the summer. We have a June retreat, which we'll be doing legal training. And we'll also find ways to make that feel fun and uplifting. But then we also have our August retreat, and that time, in the times that I've been here, has been around understanding our goals, where in the strategic plan are we, what are we focusing on. So I think that will be a great time to, again, take stock now that people have been working all summer on these things. Where are we now? What's next? How do we communicate it? What needs to happen at each of our levels and roles? So I think that will be a good opportunity for us to, again, like, take a breath, see where we are, and make a purposeful plan for how do we keep moving it forward.
Anything else on the special ed update? Okay. Thank you. That's a lot of hard work.
There's a lot of stuff there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. Thank you, Caitlin. That's a lot, and good stuff ahead,
Yeah.
but thank you. Okay, next up, now that Amanda's gone, we can revise all the policies.
Yeah, so I don't have slides for each of these, but there are links in your memo. There are 5 policy revisions as a proposed first reading. I want to acknowledge with these that it is my recommendation that we do a first reading here. Hopefully these are relatively innocuous, and if so, then I would recommend that we do a second reading and adoption, waive the third reading, and do an adoption over the summer. And in some cases, because of timelines where we've been boxed in by the state, we kind of don't have another choice other than to do that. So, the first one, and Tony, I hate to have this come back immediately after we approved it, but our school district wellness policy, that obviously there's a lot of work done. We brought this for revision. We recently had a food service audit from DESE in which we were informed that our policy was missing a statement that said that we provide free drinking water to students. That apparently needs to be a statement that we have written into policy. And so we've added a line in the wellness policy that just says this includes access to safe, unflavored drinking water at no cost throughout the school day, including where school meals are served during breakfast and lunch. And I want to thank, I forget what district I stole that from, maybe Stoughton or somebody else. So thank you for them for doing this first. But that is literally the only revision of the wellness policy. And it's to meet a finding from a DESE food service audit.
Thank you to Desi for that.
Yeah. Want to give you the opportunity to make that comment.
I know,
So.
you wanted me, yeah.
For the record.
The next 2 policies, BDA and BEDB, are both reflections of the conversation we had about the new school committee member handbook last time. So in terms of policy BDA, which is the school committee organizational meeting, this is basically just taking the language that was in the handbook, embedding it in policy here. My recommendation is to actually leave the other language that had been there, which is sort of like what is the actual process of voting, and what happens if everybody is brand new, and like who is the temporary chair during that voting process. But I think the rest of this is basically just lifted from the school committee handbook that the committee discussed last time and said our policy probably ought to reflect what we want to do. So that's what this policy is. The next policy, BEDB, this is the agenda format. Recommended policy. So this is the language that was recommended to be inserted. I'll just read it, which just says, notwithstanding the foregoing, a member of the committee may move during a duly noticed meeting to add a specific item or items to the agenda of a future meeting. Such motion requires a second of the majority vote for adoption. If adopted, the item shall be included on the agenda of the next regularly scheduled committee meeting, or a subsequent meeting is determined by the chair, providing all agenda posting requirements under Massachusetts open meeting law are met. So again, that is reflective of the conversation that we had at our last meeting. Should probably pause at any of these, because these are first readings, just to see if there are questions or comments. I mean, they're ultimately your policies as a committee, but.
The only thing I would say on this language is that the purpose of this new language, to your point, is to deal with the chair who is not listening to the rest of the board, then saying, included on the agenda of the next regularly scheduled committee meeting or a subsequent meeting as determined by the chair.
I had the same observation, and I'm
Right,
not like
the
trying
chair
to go to the
could-
mat on this particular thing,
Could
but I agree with you
undermine the purpose
conceptually.
of that by just postponing and postponing and postponing. That's the only
Yeah.
thing I wanted to say. I don't know if we want to make that, I mean, you could say of the next regularly scheduled committee meeting, or if not possible, or something like where there's some standard in there that the chair just can't keep
Yeah.
pushing it off and pushing it off. I don't know. We could try and come up with some language.
I could try to
but-
workshop a revision and have
But
that
it
for
just
our
seemed to
July
me that
meeting, so.
language kind of undermined the point of the.
Yeah, I think the intention of that language is around not, like, basically asking for something. I mean, I would say that there are a lot of committees that meet every 2 weeks as opposed to every month, like we do. And I'm grateful on our cycle. But there may be things that if they're asked for are not reasonably, I think to your point, not reasonably able to be put forward, like if it requires a whole
Yeah.
sense of extensive reach or things like that. So whether it's at the next scheduled meeting or a subsequent meeting as determined by the committee, or is determined by,
I think
like,
you could
something to
even
that regard.
say, or something to the effect of, or if not feasible for the next scheduled meeting, then a subsequent meeting as reasonably determined by the chair. So at least you have
Okay.
some kind of standard for the chair, like they can't just be unreasonable. And you also have to have that condition precedent, right? That you for whatever reason, you can't get it on the
Yeah.
next agenda. To your point, you don't have enough information, whatever.
That
And
does
that
make
way,
sense, right?
at least there's some control over the chair.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can workshop something and have that for
Okay.
you. so.
Okay, so that's that policy.
The next policy is policy JFP, which is the intra-district transfer policy. There's two proposed revisions here. So the first one is, actually, I've written the memo in kind of reverse order of how they appear in the policy. So the one that is later in the policy, which is the addition of number 9, is now that we have instituted buffer zones, we want to close a loophole where a family could be assigned to a school through the buffer zone process and then apply for an intra-district transfer to circumvent the buffer zone decision. So number 9 is intra-district transfer requests that circumvent the district's assignment of a student to an elementary school through buffer zone procedures shall not be granted. So that's a recommended piece there. I think the other thing in conversations I know that that you and I have had, Maya, is wanting to, basically a statement that adds a little more teeth to the policy, that to preserve the integrity of the district's commitment to neighborhood schools, the granting of requests under this policy should be done sparingly and only in exceptional circumstances. So that's, again, it's part of the commitment of reaffirmation to neighborhood schools. So I share this if there are any comments or feedback around the proposed changes here.
Do we know ballpark how many kids?
Yeah, so
I'm just curious.
yeah, so I ran the numbers for requests that we have this year, because requests are due in June 1st, right? And I want to acknowledge that we have some, like, there is a challenge with having this conversation right now midstream with students where requests have to be granted annually, and our class size analysis is based upon the students that we have right now.
Yeah.
There are currently 16 requests in our system. 3 of those are siblings of students that have moved as part of a specialized program. I think those are pretty clear exceptional circumstances we would grant. What happens more often than not is that our policy allows a student that moves mid-year to finish the year at the school. The question then becomes, if a student moves in like April of 4th grade, the request to then, the policy says they have to apply. Do we move them for 5th grade? I think generally the practice has been no, but the question is, like, when is that point? Like, when do we break that? When do we break that, right? And I think that this provides a little more legs. But district-wide, out of, roughly 1,200-ish, 1,300 elementary school students, there's 16 requests across the district.
Is there a, like, obviously trying to prevent an end run around the buffer zone thing makes a lot of sense. Is there another sort of, like, something that, objective this is trying to achieve apart from that? Is it like, or not?
Meaning the existence of the policy, or?
Well, is there like there's the buffer zone comment at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the other comment. I just didn't know if there was some like behavior that we're seeing that we're trying to.
Yeah, I mean,
curtail.
I think the challenge becomes exactly sort of what I had just referred to, right? So a family that maybe, and I'm just not going to name the school because I don't want to,
Yeah.
because I think every parent and every family loves their elementary school, right? But a family that moves in first grade and says, my child's all of their friends are at this school, I want to stay for second grade. And the question is that, I mean, the language of the policy is a little as it exists right now, is a little bit wishy-washy. And if it's determined it's in the best interest of the child, there's quite often a difference of opinion about what's in the best interest of the child, right? So a statement that affirms that this should be done sparingly and rarely gives a little more teeth to potentially deny these requests in the future because it is really about if you're moving to another part of town, to be
Right.
able to develop those relationships there. I want to acknowledge, I will just say this policy myself, I have, and this is kind of boilerplate language that exists in districts all over the Commonwealth. I always have concerns about equity about those because with the policy is enacted, there is no transportation provided. There are some families that, whether through means or whether through time, have the ability to provide transportation, other families that don't. So who has selective access to the use of the policy versus who doesn't? That is just a concern that I hold. So again, I think the change adds a little more teeth to the policy as a whole.
I mean, the two statements you're adding are in contrast to each other. We're moving towards buffer zones, which is against neighborhood schools, and you're saying we're preserving neighborhood schools. Let's just acknowledge that, though.
Yeah, that's a fair acknowledgement, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, actually,
I mean-
now that I
Yeah.
think about it.
I mean, I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Let's just say the obvious.
Yeah.
But I think the, I see this policy as the extraordinary, the teeth, and I wouldn't mind getting rid of 9 if we think it's contradictory,
No, I just-
because I'm not sure that adds anything, right? I do think that the idea is that this is not a school choice town,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We have our
yeah,
neighborhood schools, and you can't sort of pick which school you want to go to. Now, if you have finished 4th grade and you have 1 year left and your family moves, fair enough. But I just think that we really need to sort of say, what the districts are. If you're buying a house somewhere,
Right.
what the implications will be, and you made that decision, right? And I just think that we need to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood schools. I just think otherwise we're going to have people driving all over the place. So I don't know. But I'm happy to take out 9 if you think it's contradictory.
Yeah, I'm just making an
I
observation.
think it's captured in the sparing and exceptional circumstances
I mean-
language, right?
I'd probably on the margin be in favor of that as okay, or maybe building in an exception to 9, because I feel like the language in 9 is very definitive, and I would imagine that there might be circumstances where there's a child that is in a buffer zone and is assigned to a different school, but then presents with a need that requires them to be enrolled in one of the specialized programs, in which case you would, you would want to, allow them to transfer, but that would say, it would be circumventing now with the purpose of it, so you could add some language to reword it or just remove it.
Yeah. I think the spirit of it is there.
Yeah, the spirit, what I'm hearing is that the spirit of the added provision at the top makes 9
I don't think we need it.
redundant and contradictory.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I can revise accordingly. All right, and then the last policy we have is policy JKAA, timeout, seclusion, physical restraint of students. And so this is one of these things that changed, this is another thing that changed with DESE. So the DESE Board of Education adopted new regulations in June of 2025 and said they would provide guidance. That guidance wasn't issued until February of 2026. The MASC model policy came out in May of 2026 after our May meeting. And by the state requirement, we need to have a new policy in place by August 17th. And so what you have here is a new timeout, seclusion, physical restraint policy. It is the model MASC policy that's been vetted through MASC Legal Counsel that is responsive to the new regulations at the state level.
So there wasn't anything on this, this doesn't replace something, this is
No,
a
this
brand new
entirely
policy?
replaces the former policy.
Yeah,
I've linked
okay.
the former policy in the
Oh,
memo.
I see it, yep.
But yeah, it's a full-up replacement.
And do you have any concerns with the policy? Or is there anything raised in committee or?
No, I mean, I have concerns with the regulations, but those concerns have been heard and
Ignored?
Ignore it. Yeah. That fair
Right.
statement? Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on this? I won't wordsmith this
Okay.
one.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You know how much I like to do that. Okay, school committee meeting calendar. So these are proposed dates. Just one thing to point out, we are mindful in February that the Thursday is the Thursday before school vacation, so we're trying to shift away from that. Mondays and Tuesdays get a little difficult because of other town meeting boards, so we thought that Wednesday would be far enough from vacation, hopefully not impinging on another board meeting. So we put that as February 10th, and then we did put in a Wednesday, July 21 date for next year as well, just to have a full calendar in there, but
Yeah, the only other thing I would flag is that our January meeting is scheduled for the third Thursday to give us a little more time from a budget
For budget,
perspective, based
'cause
upon what we've done the last
we
couple of
kept
years.
doing it the second and then pushing it,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're just doing it the third. So are there any questions on the school committee meeting calendar?
No, thanks for making, go ahead.
There aren't, but I just, thinking so far out, and I suppose we did this last year as well, I just don't remember. How, does the other school activities work around this? So I'm thinking of like during concert season, when there are so many activities, especially at the end of the year during the holidays. Do they work around us, or do we sometimes have to work around them? I feel like it's both.
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
And without, I will acknowledge the need for a greater level of coordination, consistency. I would say things like having one consolidated calendar
Would help.
with a new website
Yes.
will help.
Yes.
Will help
Where
that process
these will
moving
be
forward.
on that calendar.
Yeah.
I will also say with the timelines and the way that the rehearsal schedules are built and the way that we share the auditorium here
Yeah.
at the high school, it does, the different performances get very locked in very quickly, and so
Yeah.
that compounds the difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm looking at the Thursday, March 11th, that may fall right with the high school musical, so this room tends to be booked for that. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean we can't do it, just would have to.
Yeah, and the other thing-
All of that,
And so, I mean, the other thing is like, we always have the fallback of, do we have a meeting at another school?
Sure.
Do we have a meeting in the room at,
The
at the
library,
library, right? I mean, those are potentially options for us
the
as well.
police station.
Yeah,
Anything else on the calendar?
Well, thanks for making the Wednesday change. And then, this isn't really.
That was a Tony change.
I know, even though I won't bet, I don't really care anymore.
I know. It's
After
still the
10
Tony
years of
change.
frustration. it changed.
Yeah, it's finally changed.
Yeah. This is more of probably, again, a conversation for you, Joanne. It's more this isn't about when the meeting is, about the whole budget calendar.
Yes.
That's yeah, I just want to highlight that.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
highlighted.
I think-
Consider that highlighted.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tim has already
Okay,
started talking
fine.
about that with Connor.
yeah. Yeah, this is where I will put a plug in again, that I'm grateful that I think we're gonna have a resetting of that process
Okay,
with town hall,
okay.
so.
That's awesome.
Yep. Anything else? Nope. Okay, I think do we
We have
vote?
one more thing.
I
It's
know.
kind of an important thing.
Did
so-
we skip, sorry, I'm gonna go back up. Did we skip the TEC Quarterly update?
And I said that there's the TEC Quarterly update and it's linked,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Okay, I was paying attention, I promise. Finally, the tentative collective bargaining agreement with the IAs and ABA Tutor Union.
So
This is great news.
I am very happy, and thank you to the folks on the union side. Thank you to the folks on our bargaining team. I know, Maya, you sat on those negotiations. I don't know why this thing just popped up on the screen. So we reached a tentative agreement through the collective bargaining process in late May. Our instructional assistants and our ABA tutors, up until just a few months ago, were under two separate collective bargaining agreements. The IA union had existed for a long time. The ABA tutors, that was actually a brand new agreement that was created 3 years ago. Prior to that, they were on individual contracts. They then merged into one union from a collective bargaining perspective. And I'm, as I alluded to or just flat out said earlier, I am happy that they had a ratification vote yesterday and it passed on the union side. So, as I talked about in the special education update, the financial terms of the agreement are designed to correct our wage scale to be more competitive and to encourage retention of existing staff to ensure continuity for student supports. Because ultimately, the challenges we had, particularly with an exodus of ABA tutors this year that led to contracted services, it meant that we didn't have consistency for kids. There were questions with, I'm just I don't need to rehash all the past, right? But our goal is we ultimately want to have our own employees. We want our own employees to be happy because that is best for kids. Like that is ultimately what's going on there. So in terms of the financial terms, the wage scales were restructured. We also rolled holiday pay into the base hourly wage to make our top line wages even more competitive. So what that means is essentially that prior to this, employees had depended upon whether or not they're IAs or ABAs because they either work school year or full year. So in one union, the 4th of July is not a paid holiday, and the other one it had been, right? Because of what's the length of what's the work year, right? Those are no longer paid holidays, but we took the wages that we would have paid out on those paid holidays, rolled it into the base rate of pay. So now when somebody applies to our district, they see a rate of pay that is actually, it looks more competitive, just to get people in the door to have the conversations as well. In addition, as year-round employees, ABA tutors, this is a big point of concern in our negotiations, where they would have one paycheck coming in during the school year because as hourly employees. Then there'd be some weeks in the summer where they were not working, got no paycheck, and then during ESY they might only work 20 hours instead of the 35 they normally work. So it was a reduced paycheck. So in order to address that concern, the ABA tutor pay is now annualized to ensure a steady paycheck throughout the entire course of the year at a base level, and then any hours worked above that base level are on top of that in what goes out for wages. To encourage retention, we brought longevity pay back into the contract, but did this in a different way. So the previous contract, there was no longevity pay for ABA tutors. For IAs, it only existed for employees hired before 2018. And so the way that we did longevity in this was not only to encourage retention, but also to discourage employees from exiting mid-year. And so that longevity is paid to any member of the union starting in year 1 who works the entire school year from start to finish, payable during the last pay period. What that structure looks like, it's $100 a year for the first 5 years, then it's $50 a year beyond that, right? So that goes up a little year, that's part of the retention to encourage. And again, you start day 1, you work through the last day of the year. There is a carve out for people that have protected unpaid FMLA leave, like I want to acknowledge that. But you need to work the entire year to be eligible for longevity. And then pardon the typo there, but the work year for IA is now expanded to 183 days. And so that provides additional opportunities we talked about before for meaningful professional development with our IAs. So those are the terms. I am, again, I mean, there are other terms that are obviously in there, but I'm really grateful for the conversation we had, the collaborative nature with which we had that conversation at the bargaining table, and thank you to the union for approving it, and I hope the committee will in just a few minutes. So.
Any questions on that? No, and thank you to the bargaining teams on both sides. That was really, really productive sessions and very congenial and just a great way to end the year, so it's great. Okay, moving into action items. So first is the approval of the May 14th, 2026 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote. Second action item is the ratification of the IA-ABA Tutor Collective Bargaining Agreement. Can I get a motion to approve the IA, or to ratify, I should
Ratify,
say,
yep.
to ratify the IA-ABA Tutor Collective Bargaining Agreement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next is a vote to approve the 2026-2027 school committee meeting calendar. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And finally, a vote on the revision to the student activities procedures.
Yeah, so I didn't think this required, I didn't think this required a full-on discussion item. The revisions are on page 8. Essentially, they provide a little more flexibility for the depositing of checks. With how restrictive this was, our auditors were having a field day with us. And so this basically functionally just gives us a little more flexibility while maintaining the integrity of the process, so.
Great. Can I get a motion to approve the revision to the student activities procedures?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving to reorganization. May I get a motion for nomination of chair?
I'd like to nominate Joanna French as chair.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, you are now chair. Take it over. Do we physically move, or we can probably
I
stay?
think we can just stay for 5 minutes.
So now you need.
So I need to
a-
nominate a vice chair.
You need a motion to
I-
nominate a vice chair.
Can I get a motion to nominate a vice chair?
I nominate Tony Mullen as vice chair.
I second.
Now call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll get it down, guys. It's unanimous. Can I get a motion to nominate a clerk?
I'll nominate Maya Plotkin as clerk.
I second. Can I call a vote?
Yes, you can.
God, this is not going well. Do I have a motion to vote? Was that
I
what?
say all in favor.
All in favor?
Oh, I don't know if I vote. I'll abstain.
4 votes, 1 abstention. Is there any new business not reasonably anticipated by the chair?
It goes without saying, I'd like to thank Maya for the last year.
It's been a year.
It's been a year. There's no one I'd rather have than my number 1 lawyer on the committee to be, no, thank you for everything. I know there was some ups and downs. We got pretty good the budget cycle, but I
Yeah.
think, we got to hopefully a pretty good place, so.
Yeah.
I second that motion.
You inspired a lot of people to get
Oh.
more involved, for real.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a wild year, honestly, but I feel like we are coming out of it, and I see great things in the future. I see great new people joining and new processes being put in place and new relationships, and I am hopeful that we're going to have a great year. So thank you, everyone, for your support. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
All right.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.